Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Yep, getting there. Okay, so as expected yesterday, Wayne Thompson stepped down. Yes. Um.
Yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it was in the meeting. I didn't watch the council meeting. I usually watch part of it, but I
Yep.
didn't watch it. I would have
Same.
known that right off the bat if I had.
Yep. Same. Okay. So are your cats and dogs safe? That seems to have been a flurry of activity on the internet. Did you see the hot dog thing that I sent you?
Yes,
Um,
I expected that too. As soon as he said that, I thought a lot of meow meow bow wow type of humor will be coming up. Um,
I couldn't
I
believe
expect to
how
see him at a.
I couldn't believe how honestly it was so rampant out there yesterday. I didn't even have to go look for it. I found dozens of them. That one that I sent you about the little dog in the bun. That was just one of many that I've seen around the internet. And the new me doesn't have that many American friends.
I and I still remember Harris's look on her face,
Yeah.
like what a gift he just gave me there. I can't believe my luck. What did he just say? Whoa,
Yeah.
I can't believe my luck.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, here's the question. I don't remember what state he said, but there's a hundred and I did some looking into this a few years ago when I was interested in The Simpsons. Springfield has something like 168 Springfields in the United States in 42 of the states.
Yeah, that's a
Right?
common name.
Yeah,
Like there's a Main
it's a
Street in
common
every town
town
or
name.
Elm
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, yeah. It's a common town name, so you know. Um, so he just kind of, honestly, that was something else.
Oh God. And another another less humorous uh, part of it is when he started talking about Viktor Orban from Hungary. Viktor Orban from Hungary is thought to be a near dictator, um, one of the most denounced type of leaders, uh, at least very controversial. That's the name you would not want to bring up in a debate because it causes a lot um, of problems because people are undecided about that guy, and right now he's got a very negative image, and yet he brings him up as a guy that supports him.
Yeah.
That's another dumb move he made. But then,
Oh,
interesting enough, I heard analysis of the debate by uh, from a Brit, and he said that she didn't really win the debate at all. That it debates don't make a whole lot of difference normally in elections,
I would
but
tend to agree. Yeah.
and she didn't really say anything, and the whole time she didn't really say much at all, and that was my point too, that she
Yeah.
didn't really come up and say anything, and that's what she's been doing the whole
And
time.
each of the policies she did come up with, the traditional conservative response would be, and how do we get the money for that?
Yes, basically, and he did make a lot of points. Like she could have been on the defensive badly, but she turned it around and goaded him. And I think one of the things that happened, the rally sizes, they ain't that big, they leave. Well, that got under her skin too. So congratulations for Kamala for being able to get under the skin of Trump and make him look like dumb because he's reaching bad. I mean, dogs and cats, Viktor Orban, holy cow. But
Yeah.
in the long run, she really didn't say much. And if you
I
are an
forgot about
undecided voter, if
I
you're looking
forgot
for
about the
substance, it
Victor
wasn't
Orban
there.
thing. Yeah, I
Mhm.
forgot about the Victor Orban thing yesterday. Yeah, because that was disturbing. Yeah. Okay. What does Trump what does Trump ever say? Nothing to help, just yet gets away with it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Teflon Don. Almost nothing sticks to him, but I think the bow wow meow meow thing's gonna stick to him. He's not gonna
Yeah,
be
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That really is.
There's gonna be pictures of him in Springfield asking, looking at a dog in a little hot dog and saying, one with everything on it as he chomps down on a dachshund.
Okay, so to confirm what Gary said before was Wayne Thomson stepped down, and yeah, you caught both of us napping. We didn't watch the city council the prior night. To which we can only
so Gary was right on, right?
Yep.
Gary was right about that. Yes, he did step down. He did step down, and basically it was for the same reasons as Joe Biden stepped down. His abilities, like even Peter Angelo, surprisingly says, well, when he's in council, he knows what he wants to say. I don't think that was a nice thing to say. Like, I mean, he meant it kindly, but it made it very, very clear that he even viewed Wayne Thomson as dysfunctional. Now, Wayne Thomson was a very popular guy in town, and even in his advanced age and limited abilities, he got the vote. Now, Dabrowski is the guy that's going to step in for him, evidently, because he was. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've already asked Dabrowski, and he said it would be an honor to fill the vacancy.
Yes, I was surprised that he lost. That Thomson edged him out in the last election. I expected Dabrowski to get back in. Well, he is in now.
I expected actually Thomson to come in ninth actually at the last election. Not wishing him ill. I just thought his vote actually would collapse more than it did.
It has to say something about voter loyalty in this town.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Wayne had.
Sorry, Dave.
Wayne Thompson's had a long storied history of service to the city, and yet it was very evident that he was struggling even the last time round, and yet the voter loyalty brought him back in. And that speaks something. And we have like that voter loyalty showing up in our provincial and federal elections. Nicholson got voted in all the time, even though generally speaking, Niagara Falls was thought to be a liberal stronghold. And the NDP, remember Wayne Gates? Obviously, there's not much power the NDP wield in Ontario. Nevertheless, because it's Wayne Gates and we know him and we like him, he gets back in every time. And I think Thomson was the same. We forget he interceded in a lot of people's
we don't seem to vote. Yeah, we don't seem to vote along normal party lines. Where, for example, St. Catharines has an MP who's Liberal and an NDP MPP. So they're kind of to the left.
It makes a little more sense than ours, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes a little more
Whereas
sense.
Ours are left and right polarizations. Yes. And it's all down to the people, because obviously we know Wayne Gates is a very popular person, was always ranked high on city council polling, and won that seat when Crater stepped down, which was a surprise to some. I wasn't in the least bit surprised how he won that seat, and has been there ever since. Is he doing a good job? That's up to every individual to make their mind up about at any election, isn't it?
Well, anybody running for the NDP at that time was under a huge Huge disadvantage because the NDP had soured their the NDP that won the government back in the 90s under Bob Rae did a terrible job. Well, I don't think they could have done a good job. They hit one of the worst economic crises in Canadian history. That was one of the reasons why Peterson called the early election. He saw that coming. He felt that if he got the election over with now, he'd be able to get over the hump of economic downturn. It didn't work. Voters got mad and put in Bob Rae's NDP instead. But they walked right into a hailstorm of economic disruption. Tried to buy their way out of the
we'll come along to that.
Way out of the recession, and it had the reverse effect. Ontario's credit rating went right down to AA.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute, because the next subject to come up is about what Ford is going to do now after with Singh with the Singh decision. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, hats off to Wayne Thomson. Thanks for your service. He hung in there to the very last minute. I got to say that he didn't give it up. And here is Chris Dabrowski is in again. And if the other Wayne steps down, Vince Cario is in. Then Lori is on her own like never before. Yeah, you bet. If Cario comes back in, he'll be all part of the. Yeah. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Yeah, and Mike.
Yeah, so there will be. Yeah, there'll be mountain. She'll be facing. Yeah.
Have you got this one on? Have you got this one, Mike? Have you got this particular statement? Liberals and Conservatives destroyed this country. Have you got that on a list of statements that you can just copy and paste, man? Because you've said this several times, man. I get your view. Right?
Yes. Well, unfortunately, and anyone of my age or the voters of my age, which are leaving, and the NDP will have a better chance of it going forward. Now I saw the problems the Bob Rae government was having. I saw the faux pas that he couldn't help. I mean, that Hatch building downtown is an NDP building when they were going to move the tourist ministry down here. And the Rae days where they were asking everybody to take a day off in the government. It seemed like a sacrifice you should be able to make for a government that's having trouble, but nobody went for it. You work 5 days a week, and they're asking you to drop days so that so the government can balance its budget, but you get less money. And
I'm not going to take 4/5 of my wages.
Yeah.
You think about it. Most people are going to say that, right?
That's right. And the NDP, and unfortunately, the NDP is still suffering from that in Ontario, and that is being like 30 years later. So really, we should be getting over it by now.
Okay. Anything further to say about Mr. Thomson standing down?
No, just my hat's off to Mr. Thomson for his service to the city. And there was a lot of things that happened during Wayne Thomson's time in office. In fact, one of the most terrible things is he almost got beat to death by
disgusting.
One of the Peter Angelo. I can't remember his first name. Yeah.
No, I read that report.
And,
I went and researched that report. I read that report, and I have to say that is absolutely disgusting. There's no way, doesn't matter what you feel, there is no way that you attack a politician, not physically. You have to respect them for the job that they do. If you're going to attack them, make sure it's a political point, and make sure that you do so verbally, never physical attacks. That's out of order.
Well, the problem was that Wayne had an open door policy, which is a good thing. Like Thomson had this open door policy. He would talk to anyone. and I known people that he tried to help and talk to or help try to get jobs or whatever. But Peter Angelo was a nutcase. He was insane. As a matter of fact,
And
his trial was a sham. They gave him 25 years, but it was pretty obvious to everybody the guy was off his lid. So when the case was reexamined, he was put in a more appropriate place, probably penitentiary for the mentally unstable. And he was a mentally unstable guy who got in there, and
should
and
never
I don't think
never
Congress would have ever been able to predict that.
Yeah, no, and that was all wrong, absolutely wrong, and should never have happened. That's we have to say that is a a shame on the city that we went there.
Another thing is the only one that could help him at the time was Dean Forty, who was the clerk, and he did come in and try to stop the beating. But the trouble with is Dean was like about 120 pounds. Have you ever seen him? He's a very small man, and he wouldn't. And the Peter Angelo, I can't remember his first name, sadly, but. He was a husky man, and so I don't think Dean could have done much.
Well, and Wayne Thomson's slight himself. Wayne Thomson is a slight person himself.
Oh yeah, he's about 5 feet tall, and he's and he's probably about 120 pounds himself.
Yeah, absolutely, probably less. But anyway,
less now. At that time, maybe.
Yeah, good luck to him in his retirement. We shall see. We shall see what happens in city council. Let's move on. So Singh's move complicates Ford's early election calculations, and of course, part of Ford's early election calculations cover things like that question that you were raising about his history, the historical circumstances. And particularly when Ontario Premier David Peterson called an election early in fear of anticipated economic downturn, and that led to the Bob Rae government.
Yeah, he got shellacked despite all the warnings. You've got a functioning government here, and they could see. And then this is the thing that governments can see that they don't tell us. He rightly forecasted that there was going to be a massive economic downturn, and he wanted to be able to survive that economic downturn because economy is the number one thing that voters vote on, evidently, even back then. So he saw that coming. He had a government, and he could. The only reason why he wanted to call that election was so that he could last out the economic downturn. I remember that. I didn't expect any economic downturn at the time. I didn't see that coming, and it affected me much worse than the 2008 economic downturn. I mean, I was out of work for 2 years, or barely got jobs over the space of 2 years. Very depressing, hard time for me. And anyway, so it didn't work because he could not come up with an explanation to the Ontario people. I've got a functioning government, and I'm going to call an election when I just had an election to get me here. And everybody said, "What are you doing?" And he couldn't adequately explain it.
Yeah, and right now the only reason, is seemingly, and I'm not quoting Doug Ford or anything like that. So let's get that very clear. That it's been speculated, and Ford has said nothing about this, that he wants to get the provincial vote over early before a federal federal election is called, because it would increase his standing in the polls, because history in Ontario has shown that voters prefer to have different political parties hold power in Ottawa than Queen's Park. And according to that theory, if the Conservatives win federally, they are likely to lose that majority that they have in the province.
I'm not so sure that I think that's just has to have happened to be coincidence.
I
They
believe
tried
that
to
to be the case. Yeah.
they tried to make the association with the U.S. politics, where normally speaking, the U.S. electorate, if the president is a Republican, they like to have the Congress as Democrat, and if the president is Democrat, they like to have the Congress as Republican. It happened to Obama when he got in. There was a huge amount of votes towards Republicans during the congressional.
Yeah.
The, so possibly, but I don't think that really bears fruit here in Ontario. If Ontario is doing well right now, Ford has um, extraordinarily good uh, ratings, and he will make the mistake of calling an election because that will turn people off. I'm pretty sure. I can't be positive about that. But why would you ever everybody in Ontario is saying you've got a majority government? Why are you calling an election now? And he
Yeah.
can't explain it other than I see dark days coming. And I want to get past them. In his particular case, there's a number of reasons why. I
And
think
again,
basically it is. I have a feeling that there's another aspect to this that he's going to have to make some very difficult decisions that will turn away a lot of voters, and he wants to be able to get past that, or he sees an economic downturn coming, same as Peterson.
well, I think we're already in a economically challenging era anyway, and I'd say that the Ontario Ford government is holding its own pretty well, given that governments can rarely do anything, can rarely do a great deal to actually change an economic downturn to an economic upswing, right? It's a proven fact of history. But again, now with of course Singh uncoupling himself from the uncoupling the NDP from the Liberals, has now really made that whole question about when is a federal election just a guessing game, isn't it?
Yeah, if Ford may have been saved here by saying, like, he might not see it that way, but Ford might have been saved if he had wanted to pull an election now when he has a majority government. Uh, Even if he won again, it would put a lot of distaste in people's mouths for the Conservatives, and
Yeah.
it would look very bad. It would look like when Trudeau called that election. I mean, I had no respect for the government after that. When he called the COVID election, when he said he'd never call a COVID election,
Yeah.
and he
Oh,
put
yeah.
people at risk by having a COVID risk election, right then and there, I said, no, you're trying to take advantage of the polls. It didn't work for him. And well, he was able to survive it. Nothing changed because the Conservatives and the NDP had nothing to offer against him. So everything stayed the same. Well, right now, Ford sees a very weak Liberal and a very weak NDP party that he could easily overcome in an election. However, he risks making them much stronger and much more viable by doing an abuse of power, by calling an election based only on the polls. He has a mandate to govern, so govern, and that's it. And don't think if you start calling an election, you're going to look like a boob. So I think Singh pulling out and making it uncertain when a federal election will happen, it probably saved Ford from a possible destruction in an early called election, a meaninglessly called election.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why, why a a federal government can't be the same color as a provincial government here in Ontario. It certainly has been in other provinces, and that relationship, what you may think of that relationship, hey, that's fine, but that relationship seems to work. And I would say that probably it would do Ford well to have a Polyev as the Conservative federal government, because they could work together a lot more than he could with Trudeau.
Well, one part of it, Ford is goading Singh too. So the idea that that he's kind of worried that Singh's going to call election is not really true, because he's goading him along. He's accused him of hanging in for his pension's sake, and he's bet people no way would a greedy politician ever ever call an election if risking his massive pension. Those are absolute goads to Singh, and they're hoping that in order to protect his character, he will call an election to prove to everybody that he is there to be an elected official and do his job. So Singh is in a very, very tough place here. I don't think he's hanging in for his pension. I think that's all rubbish. But the whole idea that they can cast aspersions on him may force him to resurrect his character, because of his character is getting slurred. Now, one of the things about Singh is his character was rarely put on questioned. He was always thought to be the third man in the room, but the nicest guy. If you remember the polls of years past, Singh was thought to be the best leader, the nicest guy. Everybody liked him the best, the most likable. You remember when William O'Sullivan went to Ottawa? He walked all the way to Ottawa with his petition about child abuse, particularly in the Catholic Church, and Singh was the only guy to talk to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think I think overall he's a really good guy. He may be an elitist because
a really good guy doesn't make a good leader necessarily. But yeah, he has been attentive to a lot of people at times. But also, I have to say that there are times when I've kind of felt, what has happened to Jagmeet Singh? He seems to have disappeared without trace.
Well, that's the thing. Once he started cooperating with the Liberals, he lost his identity.
Yeah.
Now, but the recent slurs on his character are just a ploy and a goad to just keep jabbing Jagmeet Singh, and now he may feel that he has to stick his hand in the trap, because he has to reestablish his character. He can't let this go, because it then taints the party as well. Or you got a leader that just hangs in there and plays ball with the prime minister so he can get this fat, juicy pension.
Well, there is one other aspect about this one, is that irrespective of when an election is caused, I think that from an NDP perspective, or from the NDP party perspective, he has to improve the seat holding of the NDP significantly in order to remain leader of the NDP.
Yeah, he's. But I don't know. I'm not so sure that he'll be punished that way, because the NDP are not doing well anywhere in the province, or in the country. But there is an exception, and that is the Verdun riding in Quebec. There's a by-election there, and the NDP have a chance to take it away from the Liberals. That may be part of the motivation that Singh pulled out of the deal, because he doesn't want to be. You have to give your candidate some sort of independent identity, because people could just say, why vote for the NDP? when you're only going to be a liberal anyway when you get into office.
I'm going to throw another one. I'm going to throw another one in the air. So what if you have a provincial party here in Ontario that was campaigning on provincial based issues, much as the Saskatchewan party in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, the Ontario party, that would be good.
Would that change would that change the potential of what Ontario, how Ontarians vote?
I would love to see an Ontario party.
Yeah,
I would. A brand new one that doesn't have the shackles on it of industry and
yeah. I would. You see, I actually believe that an Ontario focused party could do a lot for the province.
Well, to be fair, the provincial parties of Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP are Ontario focused, basically, and they can actually be at odds and fight with a liberal government in Ontario could fight with a liberal government in Ottawa. They have
not very often.
But I don't know. I'm going to look very closely at the future party, if you ask me, because I don't know what they're all about yet, and they haven't really proven their salt. But I'm pretty darn sick of these same old parties and their same old campaign. Yeah, they all rely on the same source of money, and each one of them kowtows to the lobbies the same almost. I mean, you can make the argument that's made in the States. The argument made in the States, the Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same coin, because the real power behind the throne basically are big money interests.
Yeah,
and I would say the same thing's happening in Canada, as we saw with Lavalin. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I would like to see, and the reason I asked this question is one of the things I would like to see is a readdressment of, for example, municipal budgets. A lot of the areas, like, for example, the problems we have with things like homelessness, are felt in the most serious way at a municipal level, but yet the municipalities are not empowered to do anything about it. They are actually at the beck and call of the federal government for money and the provincial government for money and building programs. Right? It would be nice to see that turn around and have municipalities control their own future, get a greater portion of the money that Ontarians contribute to the national budget, return to Ontario for programs in Ontario, and return to the municipalities for programs in the municipalities.
I don't know. That's yeah. Well, I don't know what party's going to be able to do that. What kind of party's going to be able to make that kind of legislation?
That's the sort of thing that I want to see happen. I think we need to do things differently.
So what kind of answer do you think you would get? What kind of answer would you think you would get if you proposed that to any one of the parties? Say you went to Wayne Gates right now.
I don't expect anything. That's what I don't expect anything out of any of the political party, any of the main political parties, because they're existing, policies of, But I've had discussions with other party leaders who would tend to agree with me on this particular issue, and in fact, one of them. I know a few things that are going on that I can't say anything about. That's the problem. Right?
Okay. Well, in any case, Doug
and one of them really agrees with me anyway on that about budget.
In any way, Doug Ford's if he indeed, obviously the subject of early election came up because he has astonishing good numbers, and I think part of the reason why he has as good a numbers as he does is because the NDP and the Liberals are nearly non-existent in Ontario.
Yeah.
They have no voice. The opposition of the Liberals and the NDP in Ontario is weak, and they have to really reestablish themselves. Perhaps Ford thinking that it's just a matter of time before they do reestablish themselves, and it's better to get ahead of it and have the election now.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that Ford would have really called an election.
I think there's press speculation, not a thing that Ford is thinking.
I think it was something that he was thinking, because you can't help but think of something like that. Look at what Trudeau did, right? In the middle of COVID, he has an election because his numbers were good for no other reason than his numbers were good. And when nothing changed, he had to align himself with the NDP. Now, the NDP made a pact with the devil, basically, in order to get certain things accomplished, and that would have been, and they did,
I congratulate them on getting whatever
of the Liberals to get something done, but they also lost their identity while they're doing it.
Yeah, that's going to say that I congratulate the NDP on managing to get those moves and get their few policies through. That's something I congratulate them upon. Making definite moves in the area of the dental care. We're yet to see that fully come to fruition, but I congratulate the NDP for that, and it's moving in the right direction.
Now the question is, like, right back to the article again, has this stymied Ford's plans? I don't think it really has, because he has jumped on the bandwagon, like I said before, and started goading Singh, saying that he's a greedy politician after his pensions. Now, he didn't mention him by name, but everybody knows what he is. And hello, Karen, how are you?
And Karen, basically, I think she's reflecting on what I said. It's the whole municipal act that needs to be updated. Right? I think she's reflecting upon what I was saying a few minutes ago. Provincial Liberals and provincial NDP, who are they? Says Mike. They're not loud. They're not loud. They have not challenged anything and won. Who are they? Yeah, precisely the question.
Yeah, there's one party in Ontario, and that's the Conservatives. And there's two other parties that are allowed to the party, allowed to get into the almost as if they were in the visitors' balcony. That's almost where they should be, because they're so ineffective. But they can build themselves back up. This has happened before.
Yeah, the Liberals have a small collection of seats in Toronto. The NDP are primarily Hamilton and Niagara focused, and aside, and I think have one or two other seats in Toronto as well. But aside from that, we got a clean sweep on Conservative. Well, there's the two green seats as well, which I forgot. But aside from that, we got pretty clean sweep of Conservatives across the province. And even in ridings that the Liberals have won traditionally, the Conservatives are breaking that deadlock, right? So just because provincial Conservatives are broken in doesn't mean that necessarily they will win that at a federal level, but it does improve the likelihood.
In any case, I don't see a provincial election coming anytime soon. I think if they of course brought that possibility up, and they considered it and considered all the ramifications for it. I believe the negative ramifications for the Conservatives would be greater than their political maneuvering to get another majority government before the Liberals and NDP can kind of rebuild themselves. So I don't see anytime soon. He might pull one off next year. Next year, if the Conservatives win, he definitely will not. We'll see. And remember, the reflections, the federal Liberals are really in a bad shape right now, and the NDP are associated with them for now. That's why Singh pulled the pin, and which doesn't look well for the NDP and the Conservatives in Ontario, or NDP and Liberals in Ontario, because they're painted with the same brush sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
and the
Singh, if Poilievre gets in and does a great job, when it's hard to think of any politician be able to do a great job, they can do adequate jobs because of all the circumstances. But if he gets into power, the federal Conservatives get into power, and the economy improves, and all these other things happen, then the Conservatives in Ontario could hitch the wagons to that. See, they did it, and we're doing it.
Yeah. All right. I think we can move on from that. Potential Air Canada pilot strike.
Well, I gotta leave early. I forgot to tell you. So about 10:02, I'll be pulling the pin.
Okay. All right. So potential Air Canada pilot strike, and again, it's like they're not on strike yet, but on midnight Sunday, either Air Canada or the Airline Pilots Association can pull a 72-hour strike or lockout notice. Will they? Won't they?
I don't know. That Air Canada has a pretty poor reputation. They are the most canceled flights of most of any airline, I think, right now. It's one of the worst already. So there's something wrong with it. And we knew that the Toronto airport, which is the major one for Air Canada, was the second worst in all the world international airport. So I don't know where it ranks now, but it was that way. I don't know if Canadians will have a whole lot of confidence in Air Canada going forward. I think that I just think that this will be very bad for Air Canada. So they have to settle it. They already have not the greatest reputation. I mean, I flew back Air Canada from Portugal, and there was really no issue. Basically, I think we were late by a couple hours, 3 hours or something like that, and I was afraid there was going to be delay because Air Canada seems to be more delayed than other major airlines, according to the internet. And then so this would not be good for Air Canada. So whoever's making the arrangements with this pilots, they have to get them on parity with other pilots, whatever their issues are, get it solved pretty quick. Because if all these people, and they already have, people have already canceled their flights to places. Yep. They're going all over the world and trying to find alternatives, and they've had to cancel, and that means they've had to cancel reservations for hotels and accommodations in other countries, which has already cost them money. This is not boding well already for Air Canada. So Air Canada has to do something quick and keep those planes flying. If it doesn't, it's going to be another dark mark on Air Canada.
Yeah, it potentially is that way, and I know they're an independent. They're not federally. I know they're federally regulated, but they're not They're not federally owned, are they?
I'm not so sure who owns Air Canada, but they are on the stock exchange, so you can buy stocks on them and stuff like that. So I think the government has some kind of
has some shares in them potentially.
Probably. Yeah, some kind of control. Maybe I'm really
or
not sure
has
how that
put
works.
money into, or has put money into them. And the thing is that, and again, The only reason I ask that is because the government's had a bad track record on allowing contracts to be overrun. Very bad track record on allowing contracts to be overrun. And, the federal government, I mean. And is this another one of those? There's not enough detail in the article.
No, but this has been looming. I remember articles. I'm pretty sure I've heard articles or news reports that this was coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We talked about possible one about two months ago.
Yes, and I'm I'm rather unsure of what's going to happen here, but I would I would implore that whoever is in charge of these negotiations get them over and done quick, because your reputation is already getting slurred again. People are all upset because they know this is a possibility of coming. They're going to be a 72-hour, and their plans are ruined, and they don't know what to do, and they're trying hard. Once you get a airline gets a bad reputation like that, you don't want to fly it again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Back in the early 80s, when I was going back and forth to Libya, and stopping off in Europe and back, we didn't call Air Canada. We call it Air Delayed. I mean, I remember sitting in a seat. We were delayed, and they put us on the plane and made us sit there for 3 hours and wouldn't give us any alcohol to drink, which is probably a smart thing to do, but they wouldn't give us anything almost. And they wanted us to stay in our seats and not move around. And for 3 hours in Switzerland, just sitting there, 3 hours, and then they finally left. And they wouldn't give you any answer. When are we leaving? How long is the delay? Oh, I'm sure we're going any minute now, or
in some respects, you're better off. It is better that the crew tell you why you're delayed. We're waiting a part that needs to be installed in engineering. And that part has delayed the flight. These things happen. Right, but it's better to be told a reason than to be told nothing at all. Just sit there.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
especially if people look outside and they see worried engineers scuttering around the plane.
I saw one when I was in Egypt one time. It didn't really make me feel too good. I was on a plane going from Cairo to Aswan. And the plane taxied out, and all of a sudden it stopped, and there was all this commotion, and they stopped right in the middle of the runway. And all of a sudden, this Keystone Cop type of service guys come running out. So there was this beat up old truck comes running out, and a bunch of guys in dirty coveralls start working on one of the turbine engines. And I'm looking out the window because I was right there. I could see them. And they're all yelling in typical, you've been in an Arab country, everybody yells, right? Yell, yell, yell. So they're doing this thing, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, whoa, I hope they know what they're doing. And they had one black guy with a dirty pair of gray coveralls. He seemed to be the only guy that knew what was going on, and he was in there fixing it. And I'm thinking, God, this was a bad look. But I hope the guy knows what he was doing. Evidently, he did. We took off and landed in Aswan.
So who brought the starter spray? The quick start spray.
I'm sure I saw a roll of duct tape.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Anyway, I got to pull a pin.
Yeah.
I have to get the car in for service. And without further ado, I bid you adieu, everyone. Don't let anybody say that. I noticed that one of the Americans tried to say that Hamas is stopping the ceasefire. No, it's Bibi Netanyahu. He won't go for the ceasefire. He will refuse to do that. He's putting up obstacles there. And Unfortunately, that Ukraine thing looks like it's going to be a forever war. And without further ado, I bid you adieu, but pray for peace.
Yeah. All right. So see you, Dave. I'm going to continue on for a minute. So just to point out, Peter Baker has made a comment. Nation's giant bureaucracy has become a party of its own. Yeah, absolutely. Administrative class constantly growing in size, influence, and amassing an ultimate unaccountable power over the masses. I could not agree with you more, Peter, because that actually is a really one of the big problems that we have is that is the bureaucracy, is the civil service, and they're getting in the way of lots of things. And yeah, and cheers to Dave. And I'm gonna call it quits now, based upon your comment, Peter. And so yeah, there we go. So let's basically end it there. And thank you everybody for being here. And have a great day. And we'll be back on Friday. Thank you. Bye.